The evening before I was supposed to get married to Sarah felt strangely unsettled, filled with an atmosphere I couldn't quite name. We were at a small get-together, just our closest friends, kind of a final celebration before the big day. At one point, Sarah wrapped Mark, a guy she'd known practically her whole life, in a very close hug. Then, she turned to face me, her eyes showing a mix of hope and resolve. She asked me straight out if she could have this one night, a night she described as her last night of freedom to spend with Mark. She gave me her word, her solemn promise, that if I just allowed her this, then from the moment we were married, she would be completely and utterly faithful to me for the rest of our lives. I simply looked at her, my gaze steady for what seemed like an eternity, trying to process her request and what it meant. Finally, with a slow movement, I nodded my head in agreement. A little while later, as Mark passed by me, he gave me a somewhat forced, generous-sounding comment. "You can go out and find a woman for yourself tonight too, Alex," he said. "I really won't care, I promise." But I didn't feel any desire to go out searching for someone. Instead, my eyes found Chloe. She was sitting quietly in a corner, known to everyone as Sarah's best friend. But to me, she was more. She was the girl I had first loved years ago. I quietly made my way over to where she was. My heart was beating faster than usual. I looked directly into her captivating eyes, eyes that I remembered so vividly from the past, and I asked her, my voice barely above a whisper, "Would you want to spend tonight with me?" Sarah was asking for a night with her childhood sweetheart. It only seemed fair, in a strange way, that I might seek out the company of my own first love. The room was buzzing with the energy of our friends, Sarah's closest companions, and my own best men. We had all had a fair bit to drink, and everyone was feeling relaxed and a little tipsy. Suddenly, in the middle of the chatter, Sarah threw her arms around Mark, this old friend of hers. "Mark," she said, her voice carrying a dramatic tone, "childhood sweethearts. They're different from someone who just appears later in life, aren't they? I'm marrying Alex tomorrow. Don't you feel even a tiny bit of regret about us?" Mark's expression immediately soured, his face clouding over as if he were about to cry. "Regretful? Of course I am," he mumbled, his voice thick with emotion. "But what can I possibly do about it now? You ended up falling for him." Sarah looked at Mark's tear-filled eyes, her own face showing a deep sense of pity. "Well, how about we do something to make up for that regret, just for tonight?" she suggested. Mark looked up, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Then Sarah slowly turned her gaze towards me. "Honey," she called out, her voice a little too sweet, "tomorrow we're getting married. And I promise you, I will never, ever betray you. But just for tonight, this very last night before our wedding, why don't we just play a little? Let's give each other a little bit of freedom. What do you say?" The room, which had been lively, erupted into cheers and whistles at her words. But just as quickly, a silence fell over everyone as they noticed the cold, unreadable expression on my face. Sarah's intentions were crystal clear. She wanted to spend one final, unrestrained night with Mark, the man she had carried a torch for throughout her youth, as a way to compensate for the love she felt they had shared, but never fully acted upon. She was entirely confident that I wouldn't dare to reject her request publicly, and she probably believed she could easily smooth things over with me later. Her confidence stemmed from a simple, yet powerful, fact in her eyes. Although she had pursued me quite intensely when we first got together, in terms of our family backgrounds, I was definitely the one marrying into a wealthier, more established family. She assumed I was not only deeply in love with her, but also very keen on the advantages that came with her family's status. After all, for someone like me, who came from an ordinary working-class family, marrying into such a rich family was seen as a huge step up, an incredibly fortunate turn of events. Sarah's guess about my situation wasn't entirely wrong. The experience of being chosen by a girl from a wealthy background and the challenges that can come from such a family was something I had indeed experienced quite profoundly. Just not with her. My friends, my brothers in spirit, subtly tugged at my shirt, their eyes urging me, "Alex, don't be a fool. Don't agree to this." I looked at Sarah for a long time, seeing the unyielding determination in her eyes. In the end, I gave a small nod and said calmly, "All right, I agree." Instantly, laughter and applause filled the room, breaking the tense atmosphere that had settled just moments before. Someone even remarked, "No wonder Sarah was willing to kneel in her dad's study for 3 whole days and nights just to get his permission to marry you, Alex. A man marrying into a family like ours really needs to have that kind of understanding and grace." Sarah's lips, which had been pressed into a tight line, relaxed into a relieved smile. She hugged Mark even tighter. Then she stood up. "All right, everyone," she announced. "It's getting late, and I have a wedding to get to tomorrow. Mark and I are going to head out now. You all drink as much as you want and have fun. Everything is on my bill tonight." The room filled once more with cheers and playful jeers. As she walked past me, she paused and said with an air of generosity, "Sweetheart, if you feel like it, you can go find a woman for yourself tonight, too. I promise I won't mind." She must have been convinced that I was too reserved, too traditional in my ways, to ever actually do something like that, which is why she felt so comfortable making the offer. I turned to her. "Really?" I asked. She raised her eyebrows. "Of course," she replied. "A promise is a promise. You know I always keep my word. Just like I said I'd marry you, and here we are, getting married tomorrow." Her tone was full of pride, as if marrying me was a great act of charity on her part, and therefore I should be sensible and broad-minded about her spending the night with Mark. I turned away from her and let my gaze fall on a woman sitting in the corner of the booth. Chloe had been silent and her face unreadable all night. I didn't need to look outside for anyone. I ignored whatever expression Sarah might have had on her face and quietly walked over to Chloe. I crouched down beside her, looking up into her eyes, and asked gently, "Do you want to spend the night together?" Chloe, the woman with the cool demeanor, looked down at me from where she sat on the plush leather couch. For a moment it felt like she might just push me away with disdain. Behind me, I heard Sarah laugh. "Him, Alex? Of all people, you chose her? She's been completely against men for years, ever since she had her heart broken. She won't be interested." I savored those words in my mind. "Really?" A wave of emotions washed over me as I gazed at Chloe's face, the face that had appeared in so many of my dreams during countless sleepless nights. Seeing her again like this, if it hadn't been for the courage I'd found in the drinks tonight, I wouldn't have dared to even meet her eyes so directly. My fingernails were digging into my palms from the tension. I had no idea how she would react. Then, a cold, elegant, high-heeled shoe pressed gently but firmly against my chin, tilting my head up. Chloe raised her own chin slightly, her expression becoming even more distant, almost challenging. Her voice, when she spoke, was laced with a hint of anger. "Are you sure?" she asked. I didn't want to back down, not now. Summoning my courage, I nudged my chin a little further onto her shoe. "I'm sure," I replied. Suddenly, she stood up. I think everyone in the room expected her to be thoroughly annoyed with me and to dismiss me harshly. After all, I'd heard a story about a celebrity who had tried to flirt with her at a party once. Apparently, she hadn't liked him blocking her way, so she had simply pushed him into a nearby swimming pool without a second thought, and walked away without even looking back. Sarah, seeing Chloe stand, rushed over, clearly scared, and trying to intervene. "Hey, Chloe, that's my husband. Just calm down, he didn't know about your temper. Alex, get up right now. I told you not to provoke her. She has no interest in men, really. Come on, Alex. You don't actually care about any woman other than me, right? Stop trying to show off. Let's just go back with your friends. I wasn't sure which of Sarah's words set Chloe off, but Chloe suddenly shoved Sarah, making her stumble back a few steps. Chloe's eyes were as sharp as knives. "Who said I'm not interested in men?" she murmured, then leaned closer to me, her voice a low whisper in my ear, full of old grievances. "Alex, you came to me on your own this time." It looked for all the world like we were about to leave together, and everyone was watching in stunned disbelief. Sarah, recovering her balance, yelled after us, "Chloe, what do you think you're doing?" Chloe's steps paused for a moment. She turned slightly, and her voice was like ice. "Exactly what it looks like," she said. Sarah's voice became urgent, almost pleading. "Are you serious? He's my husband." All night Sarah had been calling me her husband, but hearing it now, the word sounded jarring and out of place. Chloe turned fully then and gave Sarah an intense look, a look that suggested she couldn't even be bothered to waste any more words on her. Then she just spun around, took my arm, and started leading me out of the room. Sarah seemed genuinely anxious now, chasing after us and grabbing Chloe's arm. She gestured towards me with her chin. "Don't mess with a friend's man, Chloe. You understand that, right?" Chloe simply shook off Sarah's hand and gave her a firm push on the shoulder. Sarah stumbled backward and landed right against Mark, who was standing by the doorway. They almost kissed, pinned together in an awkward embrace. Chloe's voice was freezing cold. "As long as you get it," she said to Sarah, "enjoy your night, and mind your own business." I was already feeling a bit dizzy from all the drinks. "Chloe," I started to say, but all I got from her was a sharp, "Stop calling me that. We barely know each other." I wanted to tell her to let go of my arm, that I was feeling unsteady, but I swallowed my words. I could handle the dizziness. In a way, I felt I owed her this, after all these years. Not far behind us, Sarah was still not ready to give up and looked like she was about to come after us again. "Chloe, if you do something stupid tonight, you're dead meat," she yelled. But some of her other friends managed to pull her back. I overheard them trying to calm her down. "You know Chloe's been on edge ever since she came back to the country. Don't provoke her. Remember how you underbid her on that project the other day?" She didn't say anything then, probably only because you two are supposed to be close. She's probably just a bit upset and trying to get back at you. Everyone knows you really care about Alex. Maybe she's just messing with you tonight. She might even ditch Alex once you're all downstairs. You know how she's been alone for years, right? Relax. Her heart's still hung up on that ex-boyfriend who dumped her. She's not going to actually touch Alex. Sarah didn't follow us out, and Chloe and I kept walking. Just before we reached the elevator, I heard some of my own good-natured friends mockingly call out to where Sarah was. "Can't handle it, huh? After all that talk about giving him a night of freedom and saying, 'Just find yourself a girl,' I wouldn't mind." In the darkness of the night, Chloe's sleek black car sped through the streets. We ended up at a fancy villa in a part of town I didn't recognize at all. As soon as we were inside, she took off my jacket, then pulled me towards her by my neck, hard, and kissed me with an anger and fierceness that took my breath away. I winced from the pressure and tried to gently push her away. "Chloe," I started. Her tone was harsh. "Weren't you the one planning to sleep with me tonight? What's the hesitation now?" I had no real comeback to that. I just managed to beg, "Can you please be a little gentle?" She showed no intention of being gentle. "No, I can't," she replied flatly. Clothes started to fall, one piece after another, onto the polished floor. My awkwardness and clear lack of experience must have been pretty obvious. Her usually cold, angry, but beautiful face seemed to soften just a little. "Haven't you slept with Sarah?" she asked. How could I even begin to explain our complicated, almost non-existent romantic situation. I stumbled over my words. We haven't had the chance. A couple that's supposed to be getting married the very next day, who hasn't slept together yet? Who would believe that in this day and age? But for us, there was a reason. Sarah and I, we never actually dated in the traditional sense. We just skipped that entire part and went straight to planning a marriage. Of course, she genuinely wanted to marry me, and I, for my part, genuinely wanted to try and make a future with her work. But after tonight, everything felt like it might change. Chloe stared at me for a long moment, clearly finding it hard to believe that Sarah and I hadn't been intimate. But the truth was right there, in my hesitant confession and my inexperienced responses. Her eyes, which had been so cold and hard before, now started to show a hint of softness, and even a touch of redness around the rims, as if years of hidden hurt and unspoken feelings were finally allowing themselves to peek out, just for me to see. Eventually, she let her guard down completely. She buried her face in my chest, her body relaxing against mine, and then she gently kissed the lip she had bitten earlier in her intensity. Her whispers were hot against my ear as she said, "Alex, I still love you." After that, her kisses softened, becoming full of a tenderness I hadn't expected. It was well past midnight when my phone, which I'd left on a nearby table, started vibrating non-stop. The ringing music was incredibly annoying, pulling Chloe's attention away from me. It was Sarah calling. At a time like this, who really has the time or inclination for that? I intended to ignore it, but my fingers were a bit shaky, and I accidentally hit the answer button. Immediately, Sarah's anxious voice came through the speaker. "Alex? Why aren't you home yet? Where did Chloe take you? We're done playing this stupid pre-wedding freedom game. It's boring, and honestly, Mark's a total jerk. He can't hold a candle to you. Where are you? Let me come and pick you up. I really regret suggesting that stupid idea earlier." Before I could even form a reply, Chloe snatched the phone from my hand. Her voice was taunting as she spoke into it. "Regret it, Sarah? Well, it's too late now. He can't be picked up because he's in my bed." "What? Chloe?" Sarah shrieked, but the call was abruptly ended by Chloe, who then turned off the phone completely and tossed it far across the room. Sarah was the one who had started all this trouble, but somehow I was the one who ended up suffering the consequences, or perhaps experiencing something entirely unexpected. Chloe and I shifted from the head of the bed to the foot, then back again. She bit my ear gently, whispering for more, and the minutes turned into hours. I was desperate for a break, for a moment to catch my breath, but there was no relief in sight. Chloe seemed insatiable. Finally, the first light of morning began to seep through the gaps in the curtains. Today was supposed to be my wedding day with Sarah. I knew I should be getting ready, preparing to head back to my own place. Chloe, of course, knew this too. After a night with absolutely no rest, in the clear light of the morning, her guard slowly started to return. She wouldn't release me from her embrace. She wouldn't relent in her closeness. Pleading with her didn't work, and neither did trying to sweet-talk her. With tears welling up in her eyes, over and over again she demanded, "Don't marry her, Alex. Promise me. Promise me, Alex. Don't marry her. Promise me." I really wanted to agree, just to have a moment's peace, just to be able to catch my breath properly. But I was in no state to speak coherently, completely exhausted. Getting no answer from me, she seemed to lose a bit of hope. Suddenly, she collapsed onto me, her energy spent. As I held her close, there was a distinct hint of a plea in her voice. "Alex, please don't marry her. Please." It was a tough moment, but finally there was a pause, a small window that allowed me to respond. "Okay," I managed to say, my voice hoarse and scratchy. She sat up quickly, her eyes staring at me intently. "You promise?" she asked. I nodded firmly. Did she really think I would just push off marrying Sarah after realizing what a complicated, perhaps even toxic situation that was becoming? Her throat worked as if she was swallowing hard, and she hesitated for a moment before saying, "What if I told you now that I want us to be together again? Would you be willing, Alex?" I felt a strange mix of emotions, almost laughing at the sheer absurdity and intensity of the situation. "Chloe," I said, "you've spent the entire night with me. I haven't had even a minute's rest. And now you want to ask if I'm willing?" Her expression finally relaxed. "So, you are willing then?" she confirmed. I nodded again, and she placed a loud, happy kiss right beside my lips. She pulled me up to a sitting position. "Alex, come with me somewhere," she said. "Where are we going?" I asked, feeling a wave of tiredness wash over me again. She just smiled. "You'll know when we get there." I shook my head and let myself fall back onto the soft bed. "No way. Not another day of this. I'm completely exhausted. I can't even move my limbs properly." "Not another day," she insisted. "Today. Right now." She started hurriedly dressing me, pulling clothes onto my unresisting limbs. I was really feeling too worn out to argue or even help. "Chloe, I'm filthy," I mumbled. "We were all over the place last night. Can't we at least take a quick shower before we go anywhere?" She seemed to be in a real rush. "It doesn't matter," she said. "No one will know. We'll get cleaned up properly when we get back. We can just toss these clothes out and buy new ones." And with that, two incredibly sleep-deprived lovers threw on some clothes and headed out. We had barely left the gates of the villa when she reminded me, "Alex, turn on your phone. You need to let your family know that the wedding with Sarah is off, so they don't go all the way to the venue for nothing." It finally hit me then. She had me so spun around with everything that had happened that I hadn't even thought of that crucial detail. Ignoring the flood of messages and missed calls from Sarah that I knew would be there, I called my parents first. Once I had informed my close friends and family about the change of plans, we reached the place Chloe had been so eager to take me to. Turning to look at where we were, I realized she was completely, wonderfully out of her mind. I stared in disbelief, but she just smiled softly at me. She parked the car, and we sat down on one of the waiting benches outside the Marriage Registration Bureau. They weren't even open for business yet. She had dragged me here without even letting us freshen up, clearly very eager to get this done. Finally, with a moment of calm, she turned to me and said, "Alex, it's been 7 years since we broke up. 7 years is a very long time, don't you think? I can't wait even a moment longer. If you're willing, let's get registered right away." "Can we?" "Why wouldn't I be willing?" The girl I considered my first love had waited 7 years for me. And truth be told, I had never truly moved on from her either. But then, a clear image of her mother's authoritative and disapproving demeanor from when we had first encountered her disapproval years ago flashed in my mind. Me and Chloe, just getting married like this? We were talking about a girl from a family that consistently ranked high on the national wealth lists. Could it really be that simple? I couldn't help but voice my concern. "Your family," I began. Chloe interrupted me, looking straight into my eyes with unwavering intensity. "Alex," she said, "two adults who are in love and want to be together forever, wanting a certificate to protect their love. I don't think that should require anyone else's permission." Her words echoed some of the soft sentiments Sarah had used, but from Chloe, they felt different, more genuine. "Their thoughts and opinions are theirs," Chloe continued. "But we're adults. Getting married is a decision between you and me. I'll take responsibility for explaining things to your parents. I'll beg them, I'll explain, I'll do whatever it takes until they accept me as their daughter-in-law. But my side..." Chloe sighed deeply. It had always been the hard part, both in the past and now in the present. She gave me a very determined look. "Alex, listen to me carefully. If you dare to back out now, or if you try to run away like you did 7 years ago, you're done for." I quickly reassured her. "I'm not running. There will be no more stepping back. I'll listen to you. I'm with you." As the staff of the bureau began to arrive and open up, a few more couples joined the line behind us. We ended up being the very first couple to get our marriage registered that day. Exhausted, and both sporting matching dark circles under our eyes from lack of sleep, we were grinning like absolute fools in our wedding certificate photo. Anyone looking at that picture could see that we were marrying willingly. In fact, super willingly. The official seal landed with a satisfying thud on our photo, and we each held a copy of the red marriage booklet. I was literally shaking with excitement as I held mine, just like she was. I had actually married my first love. She gave me a playful peck on the cheek as we stepped out of the bureau. She whispered "honey" in my ear, a term of endearment that made me blush. I was too shy to look at her directly, covering my face with my hand, but I couldn't hide the wide smile that spread across my face. With my phone still turned off, the world was blissfully quiet on our way back to the villa. We made a quick stop to buy some new clothes. Once we were back inside, she systematically stripped off my old clothes and tossed them straight into the trash can. Then, we playfully headed to the shower together. Later, clad in new, comfortable pajamas, I lounged on the soft couch, watching her as she bustled about in the kitchen, preparing a late breakfast for us. She was making shrimp and egg custard, which used to be one of my favorite dishes when we were together all those years ago. Things had been incredibly stormy and chaotic, but some practical matters still needed to be addressed. Showered and fed, both of us felt considerably revitalized. Chloe turned on her phone, and as expected, the calls came flooding in almost immediately. She finally answered one. On the line was a mutual friend of hers and Sarah's. "Oh my God, Chloe, you're finally online. Where are you? You didn't really end up with Alex, did you? Sarah has gone completely mad. She's speeding all over the city looking for you, turning every house you own in the city upside down trying to find you both. It's supposed to be Sarah's wedding day today, and neither of you are anywhere to be found. Her guests are all at the venue, but not a single person from the groom's family or any of his friends has shown up. It's gone viral online already. Everyone is laughing at her now, saying the groom bolted from Sarah's wedding. Sarah is racing to your villa as we speak." Chloe remained remarkably calm throughout this barrage of information. "Let her come," she said simply, then hung up the phone. She put down her dishes and took both of my hands in hers. "Let's get dressed, Alex. After we see Sarah and deal with that, I'll go with you to your parents' place and explain everything. They shouldn't have to worry." I nodded. "Okay." Just as we finished changing into fresh clothes, Sarah was already pounding furiously at the front door. Chloe calmly pressed the remote button to unlock it and let her in. Sarah looked like an absolute mess. Her expensive wedding dress was all wrinkled and creased, dark circles were prominent under her eyes, and her eyes themselves were streaked with red from holding back tears. She stormed into the house, anger practically radiating off her in waves. First, she shot daggers with her eyes at Chloe, and then her gaze flicked to me standing slightly behind Chloe. Her breathing was heavy and ragged, as if she was physically swallowing her anger to keep it from exploding. Ignoring Chloe completely for a moment, she tried to keep her voice cool and composed as she spoke directly to me. "Alex, we're getting married today, remember? Let's go. There's still time if we leave now." She reached out to take my hand, but Chloe slapped her hand away sharply. "Sarah," Chloe said, her voice firm, "you can't just call him your husband without an actual wedding ceremony or a marriage license." Sarah shouted back, her voice cracking, "Then let's have the wedding now!" Their eyes locked in a silent, fierce battle, and Chloe's expression became even more serious and unyielding. I chimed in from behind Chloe, my voice quiet but clear. "Sarah, I agreed to your idea of having freedom the night before the wedding, but I never said that we would still get married today. I'm sorry, but we effectively broke things off last night. We can't get married." Sarah slowly turned her intense gaze to Chloe. Her words seemed to drip with venom as she spoke through clenched teeth. "Did you do something with him last night?" Chloe shot back nonchalantly. "What do you think?" Before I could even fully process what was happening, Sarah's hand flew out, and she slapped Chloe hard across the face. Chloe staggered back from the force of the blow, but quickly steadied herself. Then, with lightning speed, she returned the slap, hitting Sarah squarely on her face. Sarah stumbled backward, her momentum carrying her until she crashed into the shoe cabinet that stood by the door. Chloe then calmly reached for something. It was one of the marriage certificates, and shoved it right in front of Sarah's face. "Look closely, Sarah," Chloe said, her voice cold and cutting. "Alex is my husband now. Now try calling him your husband again." Sarah was utterly stunned. Her hands were trembling as she reached out and touched the marriage document, her eyes fixated on the date printed next to our admittedly cheesy, sleep-deprived grins in the photo. Finally, the shock wore off, and she exploded. She grabbed Chloe by the collar of her shirt, demanding, "When did you two get together? Were you sneaking around behind my back all this time?" With another surge of anger, she hit Chloe again, crying out, "Chloe, I thought you were my best friend. How could you betray me like this? You slept with him. You pulled him away from me when I hadn't even touched him yet. And you dared to marry him today, on what was supposed to be my wedding day. You're ungrateful. He's mine, not yours." The two of them started fighting then. A messy, emotional brawl. I only tried to separate them by stepping in and holding Sarah back. "Ungrateful? Look who's talking!" Sarah shrieked at Chloe. "We were supposed to be best friends, and this is how you treat me. Do you have any idea how much effort it took for me to win him over? I chased after Alex for a whole year. I spent millions of dollars just to prove my love for him, and he wouldn't even let me touch him, always insisting that we take things slow. And now you're just taking him from me? My parents thought he was just some boring nerd, not worthy of our family's business connections. But I wanted to marry a smart, handsome science geek. How could you just take him away from me like this? I thought you were still in love with your first love, the one who dumped you. Go get him back, Chloe. Leave my man alone. Give him back to me!" The fight eventually fizzled out as Sarah collapsed to the floor, completely overcome, crying her eyes out in deep, heaving sobs. As I watched her, I realized that maybe I had never really understood Sarah at all. I had never seen this raw, desperate side of her before. It was true that she had chased after me very persistently for a whole year, and her energy had brightened up my otherwise quite dull life, which was mostly consumed by research. Honestly, her efforts had touched my heart at the time. I'd often found myself trying to forget about Chloe, telling myself that I'd moved past that old crush from my youth. I thought that maybe I should appreciate this new, intense kind of love that had entered my life, or risk ending up alone forever. But the truth was, I wasn't deeply in love enough with Sarah, the rich kid, nor did I really have the energy or inclination for a casual fling. I was, however, open to giving a serious relationship with her a shot, with the genuine intention of marriage if things worked out. So one day, when she was waiting for me outside my research institute, I had asked her directly, "Are you serious about us, Sarah? Because my life is very busy with research. I don't have time for anything casual or undefined." She had asked, "If I said yes, would we get married?" She seemed to think I meant immediately. After she dropped me off that day, she promised, "Give me 3 days. I'll give you an answer. Wait for me." When she returned 3 days later, looking battered and bruised, but with a triumphant grin on her face, she said, "My parents are on board with our marriage, Alex. I've given it my all. You can't say no to me now, can you?" Looking at her then, So determined, and having clearly fought for us, I couldn't bring myself to refuse, and I agreed. Jumping straight to matrimony felt incredibly quick, and it did unsettle me quite a bit. I had turned her down on the few occasions she had wanted to stay over at my place, or when she suggested I stay with her. She hadn't brought it up again after that, but instead focused all her energy on fast-tracking the wedding plans, always assuring me with excitement that it didn't matter. "Let's save all the special moments for our honeymoon night," she'd say, her face glowing with anticipation. When her childhood friend Mark found out that we were actually getting married, he started causing some drama. It turned out that she had ditched Mark, who was apparently her former flame, specifically to pursue me. I didn't think too much of it at the time. She had moved on to me in what seemed like the right way, by breaking up with him first. But things started feeling a bit off after she introduced me to her parents, and they met mine. My parents were simple, hard-working people, and they were completely taken aback by the sheer wealth and status of Sarah's family. My parents fumbled through the meeting, clearly feeling inferior next to a family that was worth millions. I knew that even if I gave it everything I had, even if I lost everything I owned in the process, I still couldn't possibly come up with what would be considered a decent dowry for myself in their eyes. After that meeting, I started noticing a subtle change in how Sarah acted around me. She used to be all sweet and incredibly eager to please me, but gradually she started to adopt a slightly more high and mighty attitude. I didn't pay too much attention to it at first, because I reminded myself that I wasn't the same person I was 7 years ago. I didn't think I was out of her league, even though she was this incredibly rich girl who didn't really have to work hard for anything. As long as she genuinely loved me and was loyal to our relationship, I was okay with her having a more leisurely lifestyle. No one ever said you absolutely need to hustle and grind every day to live a good life. But if we were really talking about matching up, I was a PhD student at a prestigious national research institute, highly educated, with a promising future that could genuinely benefit people. The sky was the limit for me, professionally. Who was to say that I couldn't match up to some spoiled, rich girl who, from what I'd gathered, couldn't even recognize all the letters of the alphabet correctly, and whose academic degrees were likely bought rather than earned? She was a shopaholic and spent money like it was going out of style. So seriously, who couldn't match whom here? If she was looking down on me, the feeling was becoming increasingly mutual. I had thought she understood the balance of knowledge and wealth that existed between us, but after seeing my not-so-fancy family background, she seemed to conclude that it was definitely me who was reaching far above my station, and that meeting her was my one big lucky score in life. She started acting like I should be constantly humble and grateful, making a continuous effort to hold on to her. Then, she started openly flirting with Mark, an ex she clearly wasn't completely over yet. With Chloe suddenly showing up back in the country and in our lives, I was thrown for a complete loop. And I never really got the chance to make Sarah see things straight before our wedding day crept up on us. The night before the wedding, her actions and her words made me realize, with a stark clarity, that she simply wasn't good enough for me. She didn't deserve me. And that powerful realization, as painful as it was, gave me the courage I needed to chase after something that had always felt distant, but had never really left the soft spot in my heart. My first love, Chloe. Watching Sarah now, throwing a full-blown tantrum on the floor, Chloe didn't seem surprised at all. They had known each other since they were children, and their friendship wasn't just talk. It was a long-standing connection. When Chloe and I had dated secretly all those years ago, I had never met any of her family or her friends. It wasn't until she came back to the country just the other day that I had any clue about the tangled past that existed between the three of us, me, Sarah, and Chloe. Back then, Chloe would often say to me, "Alex, just give me some time. I'm really serious about us. but I don't have much of a say at home right now. Please, just be patient with me, okay?" And I would nod seriously and tell her, "I will." I believed her. I knew her family was well off and had some influential connections, but the actual extent of their wealth and power was far beyond anything I could have imagined at the time. That became terrifyingly clear when, one day, I was essentially kidnapped off the streets. Men just grabbed me and shoved me into a car. I ended up in a luxurious private room, face to face with a very classy, intimidating woman, Chloe's mother. She stated her piece very clearly and then slid a check for $1 million across the polished table to me. I was so embarrassed and overwhelmed that I was too shy to even look up at her directly. But I knew I wouldn't take that money, so I gently pushed the check back towards her. I heard her chuckle softly. "Your appetite is quite big, isn't it, young man?" she said. Then, the check was replaced with another one, this time for $10 million, and it was slid right back to me. She spoke gently, almost tenderly, as she said, "If it's not enough, we can always add more. This is just pocket change for us, you understand. But you must break up with my daughter, and you must never see her again. She has a fiancé, didn't she tell you? They are scheduled to be married right after they graduate from college. His family's dowry contribution is at least $10 billion. What do you possibly have to offer?" At that precise moment, my entire understanding of life, my values, everything I thought I knew, just collapsed. Forget the billions she mentioned. Even the $10 million they were casually tossing at me was a sum that most ordinary people couldn't hope to earn in several lifetimes. And my girlfriend, Chloe's mother, was using it as a tool to dismiss her daughter's secret boyfriend, me. My own parents, together, didn't even earn $10,000 a month. I was just an average guy from a completely average family. Every single number she threw out was terrifying to me. I realized with a crushing weight that I was like a frog in a well, foolishly aiming for a swan like Chloe. It wasn't just about love anymore. There was simply no way I could possibly match up to her family's status. We were worlds apart. I ran away from that meeting, promising them I would never see Chloe again, and I refused to take the money. That sum was so staggering it actually scared me. After that, Chloe didn't marry her so-called fiancé. Instead, for reasons that were unknown to me at the time, her family sent her abroad and effectively barred her from coming back for 6 long years. During those 6 years, I pushed myself to the absolute limit. I focused intensely on my studies, going straight through from my master's degree to my PhD. I couldn't let myself stop or slow down for even a second. I felt so profoundly inadequate, right down to my core. I was that foolish frog who had dared to dream of a heavenly princess. Determined to change that, I pushed myself incredibly hard, hoping that this muddied frog wouldn't look so ugly and disdainful anymore. As I grew wiser with age and education, I gradually gained more confidence and came to realize something incredibly important. Whether it was with Chloe back then, or later with Sarah, there was absolutely no need for me to feel inferior or to belittle myself. Because love, true love, is equal. If she loves me and wants to be with me forever, and I feel the same way about her, then that's all that should matter. Any obstacles we face, we should fight them together. That's how it should be handled. Why not cherish something you worked so hard to pursue? If you're proud of catching it, why not cherish it and protect it? On the eve of her wedding, Sarah fooling around with her ex and then losing her husband-to-be as a result, well, it served her right. Sarah sat up, wiping her tears with a show of defiance. "Like I did it on purpose," she sniffed. "Mark and I go way back. Do you think there'd be no feelings left at all? I was just being stupid. I drank too much and said something dumb." Chloe retorted, "Even so, Sarah, how do you justify going behind your best friend's back like that? Don't you have a conscience? I'm telling you right now, we're done. From today onwards, I'm holding on to this grudge and we are enemies." Chloe brushed a stray strand of hair away from her face and exhaled slowly. Enemies, you say? Are you implying that your family doesn't want that billion-dollar project anymore? You must know by now that it's my call, right? If I decide to kick your family out of that deal and screw up that entire project for you, do you really think your hot-headed parents won't break your legs in anger? Sarah clenched her fists tightly, her knuckles white. Are you threatening me, Chloe? She whispered. Chloe replied casually, Yep, I'm threatening you. How do you feel about that? Sarah was so mad that for a moment she couldn't even speak. She just stared at Chloe, her eyes red and her teeth clenched for what felt like a full minute. Then, suddenly, she buried her head in her hands and started sobbing loudly, uncontrollably. Should I try to comfort her a bit? I awkwardly pulled at the corner of my mouth, unsure of what to say or do. So I turned to Chloe for help, silently asking, What should we do about her? Chloe didn't say a word. She just walked over to Sarah, grabbed her by the ankles, and started dragging her bodily toward the front door. Go back home, Sarah, Chloe said, her voice devoid of emotion. Send your wedding guests away. Try to keep this mess off the trending topics online, and explain everything to your parents. Let them know that I'll come by to apologize to them in a few days. Sarah cried even louder. I will never forgive you for this, Chloe. Why did I even meet you in the first place? Finally, Chloe managed to get Sarah out the front door. Stop your bawling, Chloe said firmly. And just to be clear, I didn't undermine you or steal anything from you. You were the one who shook things up, and you didn't appreciate what you had. I just reclaimed what was rightfully mine all along. Sarah got up from the doorstep, looking bewildered. What do you mean by that? She murmured, her voice hoarse from crying. Chloe took my hand, her fingers lacing with mine. Let me introduce you again, Sarah, she said, her voice clear and strong. This is Alex, my first love. He's the reason I was stuck overseas for 6 long years and couldn't come back home. My episodes of alcohol binging, the multiple poisoning incidents I had, and my ending up in the hospital, all of which you witnessed when you came to visit me abroad, were because of him. The name I never dared to mention to you, fearing that you'd try to bother him behind my back, or that my mom would find out and harass him again. That's him, right here in front of you. Alex, the only man I, Chloe, have ever truly loved. And he's my husband now. So, from this moment on, you better drop any thoughts you might still have about him. Don't even entertain the idea. You know I'm an only child, and I will eventually take over everything in my family's business. I really don't want to have to destroy my childhood friend's family, leaving nothing behind for any of you. 5 years later, it was our daughter Lily's 2nd birthday. The party was held at Chloe's ancestral home, a sprawling, beautiful estate. Before the main celebration started, her grandmother was holding Lily lovingly in her arms. She gently placed a dazzling crown, reportedly worth $2 billion, on Lily's little head. Our little princess, her grandma cooed, born to enjoy a good life. Happy birthday, my precious Lily. Grandma loves you very much. Lily, already a charmer, dove into her grandma's embrace. Thank you, Grandma, she chirped. I love you too. Her grandma then pulled out a deed and said to Lily, Lately I find I get quite dizzy whenever I see large bodies of water. It's really rather annoying. This overseas estate, the one where half of its vast area is built out over the water, has been under my name for many years, but honestly, I don't want it anymore. She handed the deed to Lily with a somewhat dismissive wave of her hand. Take this to your mom, she instructed. She can bring your little brother there to have some fun sometime. This estate is in a fantastic location, with a wonderful environment. It cost nearly $20 billion back when I first acquired it. It's the most valuable gift I brought with me when I got married into this family. Our daughter Lily, in her sweet, innocent voice, asked, My little brother? Where is he? Seeing Chloe's mom still pretending to sulk a little off to the side, a playful act she'd kept up. Chloe and I couldn't help but laugh softly. Chloe pulled Lily into her arms, tapping her little nose affectionately. Then, she gently placed Lily's tiny hand on her own slightly rounded belly. "Right here, sweetie," Chloe whispered. "Maybe?" My decision not to take the $1 million her mother had offered me all those 7 years ago had, I think, given her a very different, perhaps more respectful impression of me. Or perhaps it was my significant change in status over the years. By the 2nd year of our marriage, I had already made several significant contributions to society through my work at the National Research Institute, gaining a certain level of recognition and respect. Consequently, Chloe's parents weren't nearly as opposed to our marriage as we had initially feared they would be. Currently, we are gently and happily moving into an era of true family harmony.